Bob, what was the most difficult part of what you had to do in Korea while you were there?
Killing somebody, another human being. And it was kind of hard to assess that, but then when you saw the realization that it's survival of the fittest, it's either him or me, you don't have anything to think about. I mean, the choice is gone. It's kind of tough the first time, but I know of 4 people that I personally put down. Now, with the 57 recoilless rifle, there probably were more. I know that there were several times that we shot at pillboxes and whatever. I don't know what the fatality was. But the 4 that I know, I actually saw them go down. And that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to overcome. But as I said, first time it's tough. But then when you see what goes on, that your buddies are being hit, your friends and acquaintances and your allies are being shot and slaughtered, and you say, hey, we got to do it to keep ourselves going.
When you're being trained for combat, are they looking ahead to combat? Are you thinking of combat like when you're training here in the States? Did you know someday you'd be in combat like this, or did you just find yourself there and then a lot of what you learned was on the job?
The first time that I was in for basic training, it was not combat-minded because at that point in time there was no combat going on. But when I was called back in the second time and I took the refresher course down in Fort Hood, Texas, I realized what the odds were because we had already been exposed to the Korean conflict for 6 months. And you can see it in the papers and you read it and you knew that that was what you had to do. And the rationale that I used was that I had well, a little bit of background. My mother died when I was 6 and my grandparents raised me. And my aunts and uncles were like brothers and sisters. And I had 3 uncles that were in the Second World War. 2 of them were wounded. And I kind of felt sort of a moral, human allegiance to the fact that these people went over on foreign soil to protect us. And that was the motivation that kept me going, was it was better for me. Don't get me wrong, I didn't like going to war, but I felt that it was better for me to go to Korea and fight the enemy on their country rather than have them come invade our country and our lifestyle. And it's kind of pathetic because the time that I was there were not that many people that were cognizant of the war that was going on. I mean, you may have come across some of these comments or whatever, but it was mostly by the people that had family and friends and relatives over there realized or remembered the fact that there was a war going on. It's like in Iraq today. And it's kind of pathetic. It's sad. But, well, that's part of our free society we live in today, you know, and I'm glad that I was able to do something to protect it.
I just thought about this. Was there a civilian population in Korea like you hear about in Iraq and in Vietnam? I don't hear much about the civilian population.
The civilian population over there, and it's kind of difficult to tell the good from the bad because they're all of the same nationality. And in fact, after we landed in Busan and we were standing there in a train station waiting for orders to move out, there were about 3 or 4 of us standing around a fire because, I mean, it was just survival of the fittest. You know, you built a fire wherever you could find some scrap wood or whatever. But there were about 4 or 5 of us sitting there chatting around this fire. And all of a sudden, this one guy that was alongside of me lifted up his foot, and there was a young kid, I would say probably not more than 6 or 7 at that much, come running up between us. And he had a knife. And this guy saw him, and he was going to slice somebody. But this guy saw him, and he buried his foot in his butt, and he raised that kid up off the ground. That kid was going to knife one of us, the GIs that were there. I mean, a kid came out of nowhere. So you didn't know who your enemies were. And it's kind of unfortunate, and that's what you got over in Iraq today. You know, it's not like during the Second World War when everybody had a uniform on and you knew what they were. But it was, and I can still see this guy Standing there, we were there, standing there talking, and all of a sudden this guy raised his foot up as this kid come running through, and he raised him about 4 or 5 feet off the ground. And then when the kid landed, one of the other guys went over and pinned him down, and they called an MP. But here's a kid with a knife, and he was ready to stab one of us. For what reason? Now, you can't tell me that a kid that age has that kind of mentality. Where does it come from?
But there was a uniformed enemy too, the Chinese, right? I mean,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we could tell them apart because they were very drab-looking in their uniforms, but we knew we didn't want to let them get too close to us either, if we could help it. But the civilian population, we used a lot of them because there's pictures that I got, and we called them chiggy bearers because they had the A-frames, and they would help carry our supplies, and they would help bring in the food when we had it or whatever. And yeah, the civilian population was good. And I think there was one time that we were back off the line that we ended up spending a night in one of their hooches. And it was kind of nice to get something over your head besides a piece of canvas or a tarp. But as a rule, they were not that deeply involved with us that much. I did have the opportunity to take a couple of prisoners back to Kimpo Air Base. They needed somebody, it was a non-commissioned officer, to help drive a couple of prisoners back. And I spent 24 hours or so in Kimpo, and that was the air base right outside of Pusan, but it was loaded with a lot of civilians. And they seemed to be friendly, accommodating, because basically from where they were coming from, I mean, we were their saviors. We were trying to save them. And we did have a couple of Koreans in all of the different outfits as whatever interpreters, but they told us the lay of the land and they helped us perform our tasks.
Bob, tell me about the camaraderie that you had with the other men.
It was great because we all watched each other's back. I mean, everybody was there for everybody else. As I said, this is what was very upsetting with this gunner that came up missing. You know, you're with these people and you live with them 24/7. You know, you do everything with them. And you keep watching their backs as they're watching your back. You know, you need something, they'll help each other. And that's the way it was. And it was really a close, very close family knit group, at least in my perspective. I have a lot of respect and admiration for all the people that I served with, and it was, when I left, it was kind of hard to say goodbye to them, you know. But you can see some of the pictures I had there, because as a platoon sergeant, we used to get a beer ration, and being a platoon sergeant, I had to dole it out. There's a couple of them there with me sitting down in a big pile of beer cans up in front, you know. We're having a good old time. But it's close. And, you know, we're all at each other's mercy, and we're there as a team. I did not ever have an occasion where there was anybody that I had seen, even under my command, that was discourteous or disobedient to his fellow men. Now, maybe I was in a unique organization, I don't know, but they were all like a family.